Hi, it's Cara Brown, and this is Watercolor Conversations. It's a place where I share my love of watercolor and my seeking, my teaching, my discoveries, the connections I see, and just in general what it's like to be alive at this time here on planet Earth. I hope that this meets a part of you that's longing to be met. Thanks for being here. Here's episode 3. This was the follow-on post to episode 2's post, and since it's all about the critic, the inner and the outer critic, I thought it would be a good one to share. One morning, as Bo and I were bounding back down Marinda Drive from our regular morning walk, we saw our neighbor Judd in his driveway. He's a tall, slender guy with playful humor, and he loves Labradors. He grew up with them, and we've heard the stories about how he and his brothers broke one of their lab's tails when they used it as a tugboat in a lake. And they had another lab, a female, who would play catch with herself. She would let the ball roll down the slope of their driveway and run down and catch it and then bring it back up to the top and drop it again. So sweet. Anyway, he always has such the time of day for us when we come by. And of course, he wants to say hello to the dogs. He came to me and he said, "Hey, I'm so sorry about the other day. I had grandkids around and lots going on and I couldn't really say hi." His apology was so heartfelt, as if he'd been thinking about it and was glad to repair things with me. I only had a wisp of a memory of the time he was talking about, and none of it included any slight on his part. I didn't know what he was apologizing for. But his apology left me with this feeling of appreciation for his concern for the dog and me, that he really cares to give us his time of day. And it has me recall so many times that I'd felt badly because of things a voice inside me told me I had done wrong to others. I twisted myself up once recently in this terrible feeling that my choice of words in an email to a friend had been insensitive. And when I didn't hear back from her, I was concerned that that was why. I just couldn't release myself from some imagined blame until I heard from her that she hadn't given it a second thought either, that she hadn't gotten back to me right away because she was busy. Can you imagine? Busy? As much as I find this feeling incredibly uncomfortable, I have come to really honor this part of our inner critic. All I have to do is imagine someone without it, without that capacity to second guess themselves and be concerned that they have slighted someone or have been a little bit insensitive. That's not the kind of person we want to be in relationship with. I lived with someone who never said I'm sorry in 14 years. It's a requirement for me now that I have someone who has at least some piece of this installed inside them. Of course, our inner critics can go too far, though. There's so much written and spoken about dealing with our inner critics for a really good reason. Being too hard on ourselves can be crippling. That said, I have this penchant for looking for the light in the dark, and I see that there's a good reason healthy people have a functioning critic. It certainly seems to be well installed for the art-making process. I've not met anyone who's worked their way out of it. I see it in myself for sure, and in varying degrees in every painter who joins our groups or comes to my workshops. There are a few who paint for the pure joy of it, where it seems their critic is not at play as much, but even these people have doubts about their work at times. I've come to see that the critical voice, not as something that we overcome in order to live the lives we yearn for, but rather to work with and around. In the creative process, it often goes by the name resistance, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. In physical exercise, we are strengthened by resistance. Our muscles grow if we ask them to lift more weight. It seems it functions similarly when we are creating. I can't imagine how I could have painted my first 60 by 40 painting that I called Alleluia until I'd grown my capacities by painting and painting, working around the voice that told me I couldn't paint that big or bold. And then there's the outer critic. I listened to a really interesting interview of Tara Sophia Moore in which she says that feedback is 100% about the giver of it and not about our work. Isn't that interesting? She says she now writes for herself and considers feedback as information about her audience. The problem is that many of our creator muscles have been weakened or even paralyzed by negative feedback and criticism. She says that we look for praise in places where we doubt ourselves and or in line with what we want to be true about us. Of course we do. Any form of genuine expression is inherently vulnerable, or it makes us vulnerable. It's risky, especially at first, to create. So this makes it really, really important to have a safe environment in which to have this part of ourselves emerge. If the desire to create is strong enough, it will overcome the voices of resistance. But we can set it up to help it along. My experience is that safety allows us to risk, and praise is amazingly encouraging, which then fuels the desire to continue to create. So here's the update. Since starting to record these episodes of this podcast, I've been feeling a bit of a self-expression hangover. I've been walking around inside myself feeling like I'm missing the outer layer of my skin. And it's been really, really helpful to have really close, safe people like the artists in my groups and friends and family to share this with, to get encouragement, because there is that voice saying, who the heck are you to make a podcast? So it's real and alive for me in this very moment. At our best, we are relational beings who need each other to feed and support our efforts, our lives, right? I love the idea that we can develop the capacity to see feedback as all about them, watching the parts in us that respond to it in all the various ways that they do, revealing ourselves to us. After all, we don't choose the art we make. It chooses us. That's my belief. And we paint, we write, we create with a skill level that we have in this moment. No more. If we could do better, we would. So then it follows that there's nothing wrong with anything we create. Feedback is just information and the invitation to respond to that information. For me, that's the formula for creative freedom. And to that I say, hallelujah. Thank you for listening. Till next time.